And away we go, episode 1135 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, August 18th, 2025. It is a game day for the Commanders, albeit a preseason game day, but Commanders versus the Cincinnati Bengals at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football at 8, and the Commanders' second of 3 games in the NFL's 2025 preseason. We do expect starters/key players for each team to play in this game. We, of course, hope for no injuries, as few things in sports are worse than the serious injuries suffered in a meaningless preseason game. And we wonder if anything more is about to develop in the situation with the saga of Commanders receiver Terry McLaurin. Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, on which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. New episodes of this podcast 5 days per week, Monday through Friday, with each episode out by 5 a.m. Eastern, and often much earlier. If you are a Commanders fan, you can count on this podcast being there when you wake up. We appreciate you making this podcast part of your routine. Coming up on the show, a lot for you on the Commanders. Next segment, in-depth reaction to and analysis of the big news from the weekend. The team on Saturday morning announcing having activated Terry McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list, the preseason PUP list, which he had been on since July 27th. This due to an ankle injury that very much appears to be a front for him to not practice. Well, he is mad about his contract extension negotiations with the team. I'll explain why the Commanders activating McLaurin from the preseason PUP list gives the team even more leverage in this situation. There is a lot to the Commanders activating McLaurin, including the timing. The activation came one day after offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury made it clear that he was not happy about the missed practice time for McLaurin. Lots of key comments from Kingsbury on Friday morning and head coach Dan Quinn on Saturday morning. You'll hear all of that next segment. Then the following segment, discussion of quarterback Jayden Daniels off comments from Kliff Kingsbury on Friday morning, including the growth that Daniels is demonstrating in training camp. And then the segment after that, conversation about the Commanders' defense off comments from defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. on Friday morning, including what the defense can gain from this preseason game against the Bengals, how the defense is doing, and Whitt revealing that Jeremy Reaves is the team's number 3 safety. And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats, they over the weekend lost 2 of the final 3 games of a 4-game series against the National League East leading Philadelphia Phillies at Nationals Park. Though included in the mix were terrific starting pitching performances by MacKenzie, Gore, and Cade, Cavalli, and outfielder Dylan Cruz was impactful in his return series from the 60-day injured list. The O's, they over the weekend promoted 2 highly regarded prospects to the majors and won 2 out of 3 games at the American League West leading Houston Astros, including terrific starting pitching performances by Brandon Young and Dean Kremer. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Rich on the story behind one of the great nicknames in Redskins history. Writes Rich, "Hi Al, I hadn't heard this before." And then Rich in his email includes a link to a video clip of former Skins receiver Gary Clark on a show that came out on July 17th on the Commanders' YouTube channel, telling the story of how the nickname The Posse came to be for the greatest receiving trio in franchise history, Art Monk, Gary Clark, and Ricky Sanders. Thank you for the email, Rich. Here is that story.
Really, it came after our Super Bowl 22 when we played Denver and they had the Three Amigos, and that was their nickname. So myself, Art, and Ricky came into... we kind of came in as a threesome that season at the end in the Super Bowl itself. So we said, we got to come up with a nickname. And we had a posse formation. We always call ourselves the Posse then, and it just kind of stuck after that.
That thing nice.
Yeah. It was a posse formation, which meant 3 wide.
There you go. The story from Gary Clark on how the nickname The Posse came to be. My favorite thing about the Redskins as a child of the Washington, D.C. area of the late 1980s and early 1990s was the Posse. Gary Clark was my favorite Skins player, and I thought that the Posse was the coolest thing. The Posse was part of 2 of the Skins' 3 Super Bowl championship seasons, the 1987 and 1991 Super Bowl championship seasons, but the peak of the Posse may well well have been the 1989 season. The Skins in the 1989 regular season went 10-6, but somehow missed the playoffs for that season. But each of the three members of the posse in the 89 regular season had at least 1,100 receiving yards. Not 1,000 receiving yards, 1,100 receiving yards. So Gary Clark had 1,229 receiving yards. Art Monk had 1,186 receiving yards in what was his age 32 season. Something to remember with this Terry McLaurin situation. And Ricky Sanders had 1,138 receiving yards. That is amazing. 1989, not exactly the peak of passing offense in the NFL, and yet each of the three members of the posse in the 89 regular season had at least 1,100 receiving yards. Take a listen to this, a portion of the NFL Films documentary, The Story of the 1989 Redskins. And the clip begins with this on Mark Rippon, who in 1989 had the first of three consecutive high-level seasons as the Skins QB1.
In 1989, he became the gunslinger of Washington's offense. And with three of the game's best pass catchers on the same team, they are perhaps the most feared foursome in the NFL. Mark Rippon and his trio of receivers, individually Ricky Sanders, Gary Clark, and Art Monk, collectively, the Posse. Posse became only the second threesome in NFL history to each gain 1,000 yards receiving for the same team in a single season. They combined for 245 catches and 21 touchdowns. And it's appropriate that in such a record-setting year, their leader would continue to chase NFL receiving marks. Art Monk will enter the 1990 season having caught a pass in 100 straight regular season games. He is third on the all-time receiving list. And he and his posse mates were a big reason the Redskins were able to turn their season around.
How great is that? NFL Films, so good. Well, if you are a longtime Washington fan or just want to learn more about the team, I want to tell you about an outstanding new book, RFK All Access by Scott Cunningham. Scott served as a photographer for NFL properties for years. He photographed the Redskins extensively during their glory days of the 1980s and early 1990s. Scott, via RFK All Access, has put together a compilation of his best Redskins photos, many of which are behind-the-scenes photos. Joe Gibbs, Jack Kent Cooke, Richie Pettibone, the Hogs, the Posse, Sonny Sam and Frank All, and so many more are featured in this book, which is 392 pages of glorious Skins history, 5 pounds of Redskins gold. If you are a serious Washington fan, if you are a Skins historian, the book is a must-have, also makes for a great gift. This is a book that has been endorsed by Joe Gibbs himself. Quote, "This is a great book filled with great memories," end quote. I have the book. It is sensational. RFK All Access. You can get the book by visiting rfkallaccess.com. And when you order the book, mention in the notes section that Al Galdi sent you. That's rfkallaccess.com and mention in the notes section that Al Galdi sent you. Hey, a few things that you can do to support the podcast, and these are things that cost nothing and take very little time. First of all, you on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. The highest rating is a 5-star rating. It is greatly appreciated if you give the podcast a 5-star rating, and it is also greatly appreciated if you write just like a 1 or 2 sentence review saying that you like the podcast. Also, following the podcast is a big help. If you have an iPhone, following the podcast is as simple as clicking on the word follow next to a plus sign near the top right of your screen. Thank you for doing these things. They help to make the podcast a success, and thank you for listening to the podcast. The Commanders held a padded training camp practice on Friday morning and then held another training camp practice on Saturday morning. The scheduled start time for the practice on Saturday morning was 9. The Commanders at exactly 9 a.m. on Saturday put out a post on X announcing that the team had activated receiver Terry McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list, which he had been on since July 27th. This due to an ankle injury that is believed to be a cover for him to not practice. Well, he is mad about his contract extension negotiations with the team, and anger that has led him to request to be traded. Although, like basically nobody believing the ankle injury, basically nobody believes that the Commanders are going to trade him. The Commanders activating McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list does not appear to be a sign that the two sides are close to agreeing on a contract extension or new contract. What this appears to be is the Commanders saying, hey, Terry, you're under contract for the 2025 season. We're getting close to the start of the regular season. It's time to start practicing. Now, McLaurin on Saturday morning was not outside participating in practice, but he may well have been doing stuff inside the team facility. But understand this, the team now having activated McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list means that he cannot be placed on the regular season version of that list, the reserve/physically unable to perform list. Him being on the regular season version of the PUP list would have been a way for him to not play, but gain credit for the season, get what's called an accrued season, and get paid. Well, him being on the regular season version of the PUP list no longer is a possibility. As you may know, remaining on the active/physically unable to perform list, the preseason PUP list, is right guard Samuel Cosmi, who's coming off a very legitimate injury, torn right ACL, and thus he may well begin the regular season on the reserve/physically unable to perform list, the regular season PUP list. We'll see. As we have discussed, the Commanders overwhelmingly have the leverage in this Terry McLaurin situation. Well, they now have even more leverage because he's no longer on this active/physically unable to perform list. His ability to sit out in the 2025 regular season and still get paid has been lessened to whatever extent him doing that has ever been realistic. And so what is looking even less likely, not that it was ever likely to begin with, is the Commanders meeting McLaurin's asking price, which reportedly has been substantial. What is looking even more likely is the Commanders either signing McLaurin to a contract extension/new contract to the team's liking, or the team not signing him to a contract extension/new contract at all. And this is exactly what I've been talking about. These two outcomes have always been the two most likely outcomes because A, the Commanders overwhelmingly have the leverage due to McLaurin already being under contract for the 2025 season, his age 30 season, and due to the team having the franchise tag tool for the 2026 season and even the 2027 season. And B, and this is tied to A, but the Commanders don't have to sign McLaurin to a contract extension/new contract. They can play this year to year for another 3 seasons and avoid getting locked into some onerous contract. As I posted on X on Saturday morning, the longer that the Terry McLaurin situation goes on, the more that it becomes apparent that Commanders general manager Adam Peters is playing this very well, and McLaurin's agent, Buddy Baker, is playing this very poorly. What appears very clear is that Buddy Baker came in hot. His initial ask in these negotiations was a whopper. As Yahoo Sports NFL insider Charles Robinson said on Yahoo Sports' Inside Coverage YouTube show in an episode that came out this past Wednesday, August 13th, quote, what the initial number was high enough that it almost completely broke down conversation instantaneously. I think the Commanders were stunned at initially what the ask was, end quote. Now, that is intel that would seem to have come from the team, perhaps Adam Peters himself. We do need to keep that in mind. But that intel does back up what ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter said on the Pat McAfee show back on July 28th. And, of course, what Schefter said then may well have come from the team, perhaps Adam Peters himself. But that doesn't mean that this intel is wrong. Schefter, by the way, was at the Commanders' practice on Saturday morning. That was interesting. But what I think has happened here is that Buddy Baker, whose most notable NFL client by far is Terry McLaurin, is trying to hit a home run in these contract extension negotiations, is trying to use these contract extension negotiations to build his practice, and he's failing. Adam Peters isn't playing Buddy Baker's reindeer games. Now, of course, let's see how this plays out. The situation is not over yet. Hey, maybe Buddy Baker, maybe old Buddy Boy shocks us all and ends up winning this situation in spectacular fashion. But right now, that sure does not seem likely. And that, to me, has never been likely because the Commanders, wait for it, have the leverage. And because they don't have to sign Terry McLaurin to a contract extension / new contract. And that latter item, I think, has been so under-discussed in all of this. The dirty little secret here, the uncomfortable truth here, is that this thing that we talked about going into the Commanders' offseason and never thought would become this big of a deal, the Commanders signing McLaurin to a contract extension / new contract, that is something that the team doesn't have to do. McLaurin needs this far more than the team needs this. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he did a post-practice press conference on Saturday morning. This was Quinn during the opening statement of that presser, and then you'll hear a back and forth with Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN.
And I know you guys saw earlier today the announcement regarding Terry off of PUP. So that's good news, and that'll begin like the return to play process for him. And really, it's similar to like what a lot of those guys that I just spoke about and where they're at on their returns and doing walkthroughs and begin other parts of it. That's the Coleman's and Mariota's and McGee's and into that same space. So just into that same trajectory. And so we've got a real process in our return to play that we believe in. We know it works, and we'll hit all those steps as well. So wanted to hit you up on that, and then we can get rolling with the game and everything ready for it.
Has he agreed to work out? Is he going to be working out during this time?
Yeah, that's all part of the PUP of like returning to play.
Told you that he's not going to participate. Yeah,
he's on the same trajectory as everybody else of doing the workouts and making good strides. So that was why the move was made.
Okay, and then how good is it to be at this step where you can get him back out there, get him maybe a few weeks to get ready for the season?
Yeah, it's really important. And so it was nice even during this past week, Coleman and McLaurin and McGee and Jean-Baptiste, like all of them are beginning that process of getting some of the reps in the walkthroughs where it's at a different pace, and we'll just hopefully hit that markers, then we hit the next and we hit the next. But it was good to have the guys included in the stuff, John.
Now, as you likely noticed, Dan Quinn in those answers continued to discuss the Terry McLaurin ankle injury as if it is a real thing. And I get why Quinn is doing that. I don't blame him for doing that. And look, it is possible that McLaurin has an ankle ailment of some kind. But I don't know of one person who believes that Terry McLaurin would have been on the active / physically unable to perform list if he was happy about his contract situation. The Terry McLaurin ankle injury either is totally fake or is a minor technical thing that is being exaggerated. But ankle injury or no ankle injury, McLaurin hasn't been practicing. And so there is a ramp-up process that he needs to undergo to get ready for the regular season. The Commanders' 2025 regular season opener is coming up, home to the New York Giants on Sunday afternoon, September 7th at 1. We on Saturday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider Nikki Cavalli of The Athletic and Dan Quinn.
Terry, since he wasn't on the field or working with trainers on the side field, what was he? Are you able to share any insight into what day one of this ramp up is for him?
Yeah, yesterday had a big push on some days. So there's some days that you go really, as high as you can, then other days it's low and even recovery work to go. So, for instance, 2 other players had high days today and off tomorrow, and then that'll even continue into Monday, into the game. So it's a little bit by day. Nikki, I think, it was 2 or 3 at peak high and then backed off today, and then you go again. So like all these markers we're trying to hit, and you can't go like red line it every day. So you want to make sure, all right, on the days that we're really pushing it, that you really go there. And then the days that you work strength and recovery pieces, then you do that too.
I know he said in the past that he wouldn't be on the field if there wasn't progress in his contract. Does this have any correlation to his contract stalemate?
No, I would say, yeah, from the medical side, contract, like definitely separate. This is about his getting ready to play, which is, like honestly awesome. And, like, it's just cool, to see him, getting closer, because now like, okay, steps are getting closer to return to being on the field. So he's worked hard, and just like the other guys have, they want to get back out there with the teammates and doing things. So I get that, but we just have a real process. We're not going to miss the steps and put them out there before guys are ready to do their thing in all the different locations. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, as I said, and as Dan Quinn indicated right there, the Commanders activating Terry McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list does not appear to be a sign that the two sides are close to agreeing on a contract extension or new contract. Now, here's a question. Exactly whose decision was this activation of Terry McLaurin? We on Saturday morning had this back and forth between Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
With Terry, as far as the timing of him coming off PUP, was that a mutual decision with you guys, the team, and Terry?
Yeah, I think more often you just kind of follow the guidelines of how things are going, and then you're ready for the next step. And so he's really just putting into the same group of, although the other guys started training camp, they got injured, but now they're able to participate in the walkthroughs and that. So that's also part of the return to play of getting back with the guys where you can do that. Like the PUP is really focused on rehab. And then once you're leaving that, think of it like, all right, I'm shifting the focus from rehab into returning to play. And I think if you could differentiate those, for you and for the readers, that helps. Okay, there's a shift that's beginning to take place. Doesn't mean you're back practicing and doing all that just yet, but it does mean steps are going forward.
Yeah. And the path he's on now, does that put him on pace if he continues to hit check marks to play week 1 against the Giants?
Yeah, there's markers to hit, but it gives you a runway to be able to do that. And if you can continue to hit, the D-cells, the different ones for him, and all of those guys are in the same boat right now. And there'll be more, into Monday and Tuesday, and then a few days after that. So you just kind of, if you can reach that one, then I go for the next one, and I go for the next one. But if you don't go to this third one if you ain't hit number 2 yet.
And yeah, week 1 of the regular season now does start to come into focus. The Commanders on Saturday morning announcing having activated Terry McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list came one day after very notable comments from offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury during a pre-practice press conference on Friday morning. Kingsbury on Friday morning basically said, hey, it's time for McLaurin to start practicing. Kingsbury on Friday morning, in a lot of ways, called out McLaurin. We on Friday morning had this exchange between John Keim and Kliff Kingsbury.
With Terry, what kind of things can you do now even to help make sure that when he gets back out on the field that there's not this long transition period to get that rhythm and connection back with Jayden?
Yeah, with him or just kind of overall?
With Terry in particular.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been a ton of contact with him. He's been here, but he's been working with the trainers. So until he gets back on the grass, that's when we'll start building that back up.
At that point, what can you do at that point to make sure it doesn't take a long time?
Yeah, I think, that's one of those deals. It's just time on task. And luckily they had last year to build a lot of rapport and chemistry. And Terry understands our system going into a year 2. So that should expedite the process. But to me, it's time on task together on the grass is really the only way that you can continue to build.
Kliff Kingsbury on the connection between quarterback Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin being in a good place for week 1 of the regular season. Quote, until he gets back on the grass, that's when we'll start building that back up, end quote. Very pointed, very direct from Kingsbury. And there was a lot more. We on Friday morning had this back and forth between Donna Hopkins of Pro Football Plus and Kliff Kingsbury.
Hi, Coach. Looking at this offense overall, have you seen them come together, starting to match and gel?
Yeah, I think that's a work in progress. There's no doubt. I don't think until we get some of these other pieces back, we're going to know exactly what we are. We've had some good opportunities to see other guys get work in these positions, but when you don't have your kind of projected top two outside receivers, one of your projected or both your projected inside pieces at guard, it's not going to really give you the chance to gel or really build that relationship until you get everybody else on the grass. So that's something we have to get to over the next 3 weeks.
And have you been able to see from the wide receiver room what you need to see from that group, and how are they shaping up together?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress. Some guys are taking advantage of the opportunities and some have not, and that's what we wanted to see. Without Terry and Noah getting much, we know what Debo is, and then there's a lot of guys that are trying to earn a roster spot, and so that competition has been good, but I think there's still a lot to show over the next 3 weeks.
So how about that from Kliff Kingsbury, calling the offense, quote, a work in progress, end quote, and lamenting the absences of various players, including Terry McLaurin. And then Kingsbury called the team's receivers, quote, a work in progress, end quote, and that, quote, some guys are taking advantage of the opportunities and some have not, end quote. It is not often that you hear an NFL coach talk like that. We continue. We on Friday morning had this exchange between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Kliff Kingsbury.
Hey, Kliff. Going back to Terry real quick, you talk about, gelling with the offense on the grass. How much work are you getting with him in the classroom, and kind of at this point of the season, how high value is that? Is the meeting work? Yeah,
I think, not as much as we would if he was full go. There's no doubt. But I think, like I said, I'm huge on walkthroughs, on practice, things like that, because until you get on the grass and actually do it and feel the timing, feel the depths of routes and things of that nature, I don't know exactly how much you can get out of that. So I think we're kind of at that point to where we need to start getting those guys when they're available out there and gelling and seeing what we are as an offense.
All right, Kliff Kingsbury on offensive players, including Terry McLaurin, who have been missing practices. Quote, I think we're kind of at that point to where we need to start getting those guys when they're available out there and gelling and seeing what we are as an offense, end quote. Kliff Kingsbury on Friday morning spoke with a blunt honesty that you don't often get from NFL coaches. Now, whether this blunt honesty was rooted in an anger from Kingsbury toward Terry McLaurin, or toward Adam Peters for not having this situation settled, or just toward the entire situation is hard to say. But Kingsbury clearly was not happy. I wonder if the team on Saturday morning announcing having activated Terry McLaurin from the active/physically unable to perform list was at all a result of what Kingsbury said on Friday morning, or if Kingsbury said what he said on Friday morning knowing that the activation was imminent. Whatever the case, it was impossible to ignore what Kingsbury said on Friday morning. We on Saturday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig and Dan Quinn.
Dan, Kliff talked yesterday about it's hard to assess where the offense is right now because Terry's out along with three other guys that are injured. How do you kind of look at that? How do you kind of assess where this group is knowing that you're missing a lot of guys?
Yeah, that's just part of it. Like sometimes as coaches, we get frustrated, just like the players do on stuff. And so, look, all of us want everybody out there, like Joe's in the same with, Jordan McGee and Jean Baptiste and that. And like we love these guys. We know how hard they're working to get back. And, we just want them to, get to that space. But as a coach, you learn to control the things that you can. And we know that ramping up is taking place. So that's good. But in the space where other guys get their opportunities, Ben, I think that's important to recognize also. They've got to go take it, when those ones aren't there. And it is part of it. We know that. And so, but we really want to get these guys all back going and doing our thing. So I get that.
Yeah, keep in mind, too, that Kliff Kingsbury removed himself from NFL head coaching consideration this past offseason, but he still may well want to be an NFL head coach again. Him being without his number one receiver does not help that cause. The Terry McLaurin situation off Kliff Kingsbury's comments on Friday morning was the lead story on ESPN's NFL Live on Friday afternoon. Here was ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler on the show.
From what I'm hearing, there's still a pretty sizable gap in how they see the wide receiver market. Washington's down here. Terry McLaurin's pretty high up here. I'm told the players dug in, remains frustrated. Not a lot of traction on a trade right now, even though I do know there are some teams that are interested or have at least called. But right now, I'm told Washington does remain optimistic in this. Despite some of the smoke around all the issues and him still out of practice, they feel like when push comes to shove, closer to week 1, they can reach some sort of compromise. It's probably not going to be a situation where he plays out the year in his contract and plays the franchise tag next year. Like, he needs some sort of contract. They're hoping they can find a sweet spot here, but they're sort of waiting each other out. And meanwhile, this could get ugly.
Yeah, and so the Terry McLaurin saga continues, but he is now off the active/physically unable to perform list. He is now off the preseason PUP list. We on Saturday morning had this exchange with Dan Quinn.
Coach, in regard to Terry's emotional impact, spoke with Tyler Biotish as he was coming off of the field and asked him about Terry being activated from the PUP list. His face really lit up. Do you have a sense of what it will mean emotionally to the team once Terry is able to be back practicing with them?
Yeah, that's a great question, honestly, for Terry. You know, like, as a teammate, they love him. So that's a big deal to when the guys get back together. But they love him. They love Brandon and Marcus and, you know, like all these guys. This is a really tight and connected team, and Terry is very much, you know, right in the middle of that as well. So, yeah, we're taking good steps for sure.
Well, whenever this Terry McLaurin situation ends, however it ends, I will have nothing but love for our guy, Terry McLaurin. I do not hold any of this against him. I am not mad at him, but I'm also not mad at Adam Peters. To me, each side is acting in its own best interests. Each side is doing what it feels like it needs to do. I get that. I respect that. But what's also true is that one side has always had a lot more leverage than the other side. And that side with the leverage is looking increasingly likely to get that side's way in this situation in some form. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. We expect to see starters/key players for the Commanders and Cincinnati Bengals play in the Commanders preseason game against the Bengals at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football at 8. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, during the opening statement of his post-practice press conference this past Saturday morning at training camp, confirmed that starters/key players for the team will play on Monday night, though he also provided a lengthy list of starters/key players who will not play in the game. Those players on offense: quarterback Marcus Mariota, receivers Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, tight end Zach Ertz, and offensive linemen Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, and Samuel Cosme. On defense, edge defenders Von Miller and Javonte Jean-Baptiste, linebackers Bobby Wagner and Jordan McGee, and cornerback Jonathan Jones. But we do expect to see each team's QB1 play Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow. A reminder of the epic duel between those two in the Commanders' 38-33 win at the Bengals on, yes, Monday Night Football this past September 23rd. The ESPN total QBR metric is on a scale of 0 to 100. Daniels for that game had a total QBR of 95.9. 1.4. Burrow for that game had a total QBR of 82.3. And this was the Jayden Daniels coming out game, right? Punctuated by his 3rd and 7, 27-yard shotgun touchdown pass on a deep ball to Terry McLaurin, and off Daniels taking a quarterback hit from safety Geno Stone, who came in unblocked. Daniels dropped a dime to McLaurin in the end zone for the touchdown with 2:10 left in the fourth quarter. The touchdown pass for the NFL's next-gen stats had a completion probability of just 10.3%, making that touchdown pass the most improbable regular season completion. That touchdown pass completion by a Washington quarterback in the next-gen stats era, which started with the 2016 season. And there was more to this game for Jayden Daniels. He, for the game, had an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of 95.9, the highest single-game overall grade for a qualified Washington quarterback in a regular season game in the history of PFF, which started in 2006. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 160 is average. Daniels completed 21 of his 23 pass attempts. That works out to a completion percentage of 91.3, the best regular season single game completion percentage for a rookie quarterback with at least 20 pass attempts in that game in NFL history. Daniels, over those 23 pass attempts, threw for 254 yards. That works out to a yards per pass attempt of 11.04, which is superb. On and on I could go about Daniels' performance in that game. What a night that was. Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury, during his pre-practice press conference on Friday morning at training camp, got asked about Jayden Daniels quite a bit. We, during the presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Kingsbury.
What's the biggest change for you that you've seen from Jayden? Now, I talked to you earlier in camp, but just as you've gone throughout camp, what may be some of the biggest changes you've seen in him from last year?
Yeah, I think just the treating each practice, each rep like a game, full speed, whether it's carrying out his fakes, moving around to throw the ball away. It's like each practice rep he's getting, he's making it like a game, which that'll be a big help as we get into the season and as he continues to practice that way throughout the season.
Yeah, something like what Kliff Kingsbury just described is the kind of thing that really only a coach notices, and is the kind of thing that can matter a ton, and is the kind of thing that provides reason to believe that Jayden Daniels in his second NFL season could be even better than he was during his all-time great rookie season. More from Kliff Kingsbury on Jayden Daniels, who on Friday morning had this exchange.
Coach, your relationship with Jayden, it looks like he is very good at remembering plays and things like that. Even last year, I don't remember seeing him wear a sleeve or anything like that. Is there something different that you do that's unique to how you know?
No, I wish I could take credit for that. That's God-given. We'll go out to walkthroughs and I'll screw up a play and he'll nail it. So he's a lot more cerebral on that stuff than I am. I think he just has one of those photographic memories. The first time we install it, first time we say it, he can tell you where everybody's going, what they're doing, their job. And so that's a God-given thing, not a coaching thing.
I tell you, the football intellect of Jayden Daniels, sky high, maybe his biggest strength. Yeah, he's accurate. Yeah, he's fast. Yeah, he's tough. Yeah, he works hard. But his number one trait, his number one superpower may well be his mind, especially his ability to process what to do on a play quickly and correctly. We on Friday morning had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Kliff Kingsbury.
Morning, Kliff. More on Jayden. As he continues to grow and evolve, compared to last year, are you giving him more responsibility or more tasks that not necessarily you didn't do in year one, but now you are implementing in year two? And do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I think just organically really controlling the entire process, mastering the system. He's done a great job. So he's seeing things pre-snap, getting us into different things that maybe he wouldn't have seen last year when it was moving a little bit faster for him. But you definitely see, particularly the protections, really taking pride in getting us slid the right way. And then a lot of the checks that we have in our offense, trying to get us into our best matchups, get us into our best pass play, best run play versus certain looks. He's been all over those this whole camp. So that's a big jump from just trying to execute the play call to really seeing it and getting us in the best situation most times.
again, something that really only a coach notices, but something that could prove to be very meaningful. What about stuff off the field with Jayden Daniels, who on Friday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore of the Washington Post and Kliff Kingsbury?
One more thing on Jayden. There's so much that goes into that position that's like not football related. I guess, have you seen him handle that side of things? And, has there been a change in that given all that comes out of a guy when you have the success he did in year one?
Yeah, I have not. I mean, he's very laid back, still treats people tremendously well, very attentive in meetings, wants to be great, gets earlier and earlier on his walkthroughs. So if anything, I've seen pretty as much as overall routine and kind of process improve greatly from year one to year two.
I was a big fan of the Commanders hiring Kliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator in February 2024. The biggest reason why was his history with young quarterbacks. Among those quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes. Kingsbury was Texas Tech head coach December 2012 to November 2018. Now, Kingsbury as Texas Tech head coach went just 35-40, but he was Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, Patrick Mahomes' collegiate head coach. Mahomes was a Texas Tech quarterback for the 2014 through 2016 seasons. Kingsbury is included in the documentary series The Kingdom, a new 6-part ESPN original series on the Chiefs. And so we on Friday morning had this exchange with Kliff Kingsbury.
Coach, we talk a lot about Jayden's instinct, but how about your instinct? I was watching the documentary on The Kingdom, and they interviewed you about Patrick Mahomes. Your instinct on what you see in a quarterback, even before they get to a point of stardom, like you've been around these. What are you, when you talk about the players' instincts, what are your instincts? What do you look for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of stuff. I think those are two guys that anybody could have said, hey, they're going to be really good. It wasn't Patrick, when you watch his high school film, it was like unique to anything I've ever seen. He just had a incredible vision of the field. It didn't look like a guy who'd been brought up playing the position in all the different camps and quarterback tutors, but he led and he moved the football. And with Jayden, just watching him in college, his ability to progress was very unique to a lot of college kids. You can set it up in college. A lot of times you get them to their first read and they'll cut it loose. But his ability, with all his natural running ability to stay in the pocket, progress through, the touch passes, the accuracy, it was just unique to most of the players that I've ever scouted.
Well, among the Commanders' games in the 2025 regular season is a game at the Chiefs. Commanders at the Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th. Perhaps we'll get the kind of quarterback battle that we got between Jayden Daniels and Joe Burrow on Monday Night Football this past September. Now, I'm guessing that we don't get that kind of battle on this Monday night with each guy not playing for the whole game. Although, who knows? Maybe we'll get a great quarterback battle for a quarter or a half. Let's talk Commanders defense, which should get a good test in the team's preseason game against the Cincinnati Bengals at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football at 8. We expect to see starters/key players for each team play. Who knows for how long, but the Bengals are loaded on offense, including an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow and maybe the best receiver duo in the NFL in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Commanders defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., he did a post-practice press conference on Friday morning at training camp. We, during that presser, had this back and forth between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Whitt.
As you guys get ready here for the Bengals, I know you're not game planning in particular, but it did seem like you were looking at this kind of the sets that the Bengals might give you. Does this week kind of work as a prep week to mimic kind of how you will go into a game, into a regular season game schedule?
Yeah, we're not getting to a full game plan, but we will do what we call a snapshot game plan, where we'll give them a little bit of what the normal game week will be, but it won't be a full detailed deep dive like we normally do. We're still in sort of a training camp mode, so we're working both sides of it.
And for Trey Amos, having an opportunity to go up against more proven NFL players like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, with the Bengals ones, how much will that help you in your evaluation and his growth as a rookie?
I think it'll help a lot. I value Jamar Chase so much, man. I think this kid is the the premier receiver in the league. I mean, he's second to none. He can run the routes. He's run after catch. And so the ability to be able to go up there and defend a guy like that, and, at some point he's going to beat you. And then how do you respond? And then T. Higgins, he's not a 2. Let's not get that in. He is a 1 also. So they have 2 1s, and then they have a great quarterback that can place the ball wherever he needs to place it. So I'm excited to see, because we've covered really well out here every day, especially the top 5 corners. And so I'm excited to see against who I think is the best receiver in the league in Jamar Chase.
I guess that Joe Whitt doesn't think that the Commanders' Terry McLaurin is the best receiver in the league. Whitt mentioned the Commanders' top 5 cornerbacks having covered well during training camp practices. I do think that top 5 has a chance to be good. Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey Sainristil, Trey Amos. By the way, no more Trey Amos. He has said that his last name is pronounced Amos, like famous Amos, and so we say Trey Amos, Jonathan Jones, and Noah Igbenogany. The biggest key to the Commanders' cornerback group being good, and to me, to the defense being good, is Lattimore staying healthy and playing well. How is the defense doing? We on Friday morning had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Joe Whitt.
I'm curious what you've seen from the defense and the growth of the defense throughout camp so far.
We've had some really good practices, and we have to get that to translate to the game film. But I've been pleased with the way we're rushing, playing the run, covering really well on the back end. And so the collective group have been growing together, getting to know each other with the new additions. So it's been good. Now it has to translate to on game day.
Do you feel, because of the way you talk about the coverage in secondary, do you feel that allows you to be a little bit more versatile, creative with what you want to do?
That's just how we've always, or the schemes that I've been a part of, have been able to get up and press and cover on the outside, tight coverage. So that's more what I'm used to. I'm not accustomed to really zony type coverages, and so it's not necessarily giving me more flexibility to add variety. I guess that's what your question is. It gives us the ability to really run the defense that we want to run without having to plug holes in different places.
Well, a player who has had a good training camp and who did well in the Commanders' preseason opening 48-18 loss at the New England Patriots on August 8th was safety Jeremy Reaves. There has been the thought that he, this coming regular season, could be seeing more playing time on defense. He, of course, is a great special teams player, but he in his NFL career has not consistently played much on defense. So Reaves' last regular season played in all 17 of the Commanders' games, but on a total of just 4 defensive snaps. Well, we on Friday morning had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Cavalli of The Athletic and Joe Whitt.
What have you seen out of Jeremy Reaves throughout camp? I mean, has he taken a step from last year, in your opinion?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's earned right now to be that third safety type of player where you'll see him in there more. He's such a special teams ace that it's hard to just, play him full time on defense because he's so important to special teams. But he just keeps making plays. So we're gonna find places for him on defense, and he's earned that. He's always around the ball. His physicality is unmatched, and so I've been very pleased with what he's done this camp.
So how about that from Joe Whitt on Jeremy Reaves? Quote, he's earned right now to be that third safety, end quote. The Commanders' top 2 safeties are Quan Martin and Will Harris. Number 3 per Joe Whitt is Jeremy Reaves and not Percy Butler. Interestingly, the team since the end of last season has signed each guy to a reported 1-year contract extension. Reaves got his in June. Butler got his in July. Also coming up on Friday morning was Wes Welker. The Commanders this past April hired former NFL receiver Wes Welker as a personnel analyst. He is, as I have called him, a Deebo Samuel whisperer. Welker got a lot out of Commanders receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. during Welker's 3 seasons as San Francisco 49ers receivers coach 2019 through 2021. Those were Deebo's first 3 seasons with the Niners. But Welker is providing more to the Commanders than just whispering to Deebo. During offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury's pre-practice press conference on Friday morning had this exchange between Adam Kilgore of The Washington Post and Kingsbury.
Wes Welker's a guy you've known for a long, long time. he's listed as in the front office, but we see him out there every day in the field. Like, what exactly is Wes doing for you guys, and what does he bring to a football team?
Yeah, he does a lot. I thought DQ had a great thought on that. Adam had a great thought on that. He's helping the defense a lot, bringing an offensive perspective into their room, and then obviously just as a tool for any of the current players and receivers to just bump ideas off of, for me to use for ideas. He's kind of a jack of all trades for us right now, but a guy that's competitive, can share that type of wisdom, those type of stories, the things he's been through with our current team. He's been an incredible addition to us.
So it turns out that Wes Welker is helping the Commanders' offense and defense. And so we on Friday morning had this exchange between Washington Post columnist Barry Svrluga and Joe Whitt.
We had Kliff in earlier and asked him about Wes Welker, and he said Wes is actually helping on the defensive side of the ball.
Correct.
We think of him as a guy who catches 100 passes a year. What kind of role is he playing in helping you guys?
So we did the same thing in Dallas, where the first time we did it with Ben McAdoo. The second time was with Brian Schottenheimer, where they did pre-scouting from an offensive standpoint. Now Wes is going to do that with me, and it was really because Shotty was really good, especially on anticipating. Okay, this is what you're going to get next. This from an offensive lens. Now my background is started off on offense, so I still see things from an offensive lens. But having Wes with his knowledge of pass game and being in the different offensive systems, it's going to give us the ability to, or give me the ability as a play caller to have high anticipation of what's coming next. So, and then he also gives the secondary and Coach Simmons and those guys on the back end just a wealth of knowledge of how routes are being ran, where the break points are, what's the quarterback's reads, and the looks and the hots from that standpoint. So he's been a really good addition, and I'm looking forward to working with the rest of the year.
I love it. Great insight from Kliff Kingsbury and Joe Whitt on what the Commanders are getting from Wes Welker. Are you looking to upgrade the heart of your home, whether it's time to repair your gas fireplace, modernize your hearth, or simply add more comfort and style? Nova Fireplace and Stove is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for heat, safety, and home transformation. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed, and insured company with over-the-top credentials, gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Nova Fireplace and Stove has a beautiful showroom in Woodbridge, Virginia. That's where your dream fireplace begins. Come in and see Nova Fireplace and Stove's stunning displays, including custom fireplace glass doors and stone refacing options that can completely transform the look of your fireplace. From sleek and modern to rustic and cozy, Nova Fireplace and Stove has something for every style. And here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacement, and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Every job includes a free in-home estimate. And for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention this ad. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed because Nova Fireplace and Stove takes pride in every flame that is lit and in every customer who is served. So stop by the showroom, see what's possible, and let Nova Fireplace and Stove help you bring warmth, safety, and style to your space. You can also visit NovaFireplaceandStove.com. Nova Fireplace and Stove, where comfort meets craftsmanship, and your fireplace becomes the heart of your home. Well, the Nationals on Monday have their first off day in 2 weeks. The Nats' last off day was Monday, August 4th, and the Nats could use this off day on Monday given the series that they just had, to say nothing of the season that they're having. The Nats over the weekend lost 2 of the final 3 games of a 4-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies at Nationals Park. Thursday evening, a 3-2 win over the Phillies in a game in which the Nats overcame a 2-1 seventh-inning deficit by scoring 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th. Friday evening, a 6-2 loss to the Phillies. Saturday, a 2-0 win over the Phillies. Sunday, an 11-9 loss to the Phillies in a game in which the Nats overcame a 6-0 third-inning deficit by scoring 6 runs in the bottom of the third. The game aired on Roku Sports Channel, started at 11:35 a.m., and lasted for 3 hours and 22 minutes. Roku got its money's worth with this game. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 50-74. Worst record in the National League East. Second worst record in the National League. The Phillies in this regular season now are an NL East best 71-53. The Nats offense in this 4-game split with the Phillies was good in just one of the 4 games. The last game, the 3-2 win over the Phillies on Thursday evening. The Nats scored just 3 runs, totaled just 6 hits, and went just 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The 6 hits were a home run, a double, and 4 singles. The Nats did work 3 walks. The 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening, the Nats scored just 2 runs, totaled just 6 hits, and went just 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The 6 hits were a home run, 2 doubles, and 3 singles. So the Nats did work 3 walks, but Philly starting pitcher Zach Wheeler allowed 2 runs in 5 innings with 6 strikeouts. Although the Nats did do a good job of making Wheeler work. He threw 97 pitches and lasted for just the 5 innings. The 2-0 win over the Phillies on Saturday, the Nats scored just 2 runs, totaled just 7 hits, worked just 2 walks, and went just 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The 7 hits were a double and 6 singles. Philly starting pitcher Taijuan Walker allowed 2 runs in 6 2/3 innings, but the Nats did win. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 1 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 2-run double, did commit a fielding error in the top of the 9th, but Wood in the Nats 2-run 5th had a 2-out full count, 2-run double to the right center field gap for a 2-0 Nats lead. And then the 11-9 loss to the Phillies on Sunday. James Wood did not start. He is a pinch hitter, struck out to end the game, and yet the Nats offense had its best game in the series. The Nats scored 9 runs, totaled 13 hits, worked 2 walks, and went 5 for 15 with runners in scoring position. The 13 hits were a home run, 5 doubles, and 7 singles. The Nats hammered Philly starting pitcher Aaron Nola in his return from the 60-day injured list. He allowed 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings. So C.J. Abrams as the Nats starting shortstop and number 2 batter went 3 for 5 with a double, an RBI single, and another single. Luis Garcia Jr. as the Nats starting DH and number 1 batter went 3 for 4 with 3 singles, a walk, and a stolen base. Dalen Lyle as the Nats starting left fielder and number 4 batter went 2 for 5 with a double and a 2-run single. Says a lot that Lyle was entrusted with that number 4 spot, but he's having a terrific month of August. Lyle's OPS for this month of August now is at .818, and Paul DeJong, he is the Nats starting first baseman and number 3 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a walk. His OPS for this month of August now is at 1,049. Another bright spot for the Nats in this 4-game split with the Phillies was the Nats getting back outfielder Dylan Cruz. The Nats on Thursday afternoon announced having returned Cruz from his minor league rehab assignment and having reinstated him from the 60-day injured list, which he had been on since July 22nd. He, prior to that, had been on the 10-day injured list since May 21st. All of this due to a left oblique strain that kept him out for nearly 3 months. Well, the 3-2 win over the Phillies on Thursday evening. Cruz, as the Nats starting right fielder and number 2 batter, went 1 for 3 with a single, a walk, and a stolen base. The 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening. Cruz, as the Nats starting right fielder and number 7 batter, went 1 for 4 with a single, though he did get thrown out at home and did commit a throwing error. Cruz, in the bottom of the second, had a went-out infield single to the right side of the infield on a 1-2 pitch, but he was thrown out at home by right fielder Nick Castellanos by quite a bit on a went-out opposite field single by Riley Adams into right field. The 2-0 win over the Phillies on Saturday. Cruz, as the Nats starting DH and number 7 batter, went 0 for 2 with a walk. And the 11-9 loss to the Phillies on Sunday. Cruz, as the Nats starting right fielder and number 5 batter, went 1 for 5 with a 2-run double, and he had an outfield assist. Cruz, in the top of the third, had an outfield assist in throwing out Harrison Bader at home on a 2-out opposite field single by ex-Nat Trey Turner to right field. And Cruz, in the Nats' 6-run third, had a went-out first pitch, 2-run double on a bouncer into left field to cut the Nats deficit to 6-5. Really good to have Dylan Cruz back. Of course, a key player in the Nats rebuild. They took him out of LSU with the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 MLB draft. The Nats starting pitching in this 4-game split with the Phillies was very good over the first 3 games and then very bad in Game 4. The 3-2 win over the Phillies on Thursday evening. Brad Lord allowed 2 runs in 6 innings. The 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening. MacKenzie Gore was good for a second consecutive start off a 4-start slump. He allowed 2 runs in 6 innings with 7 strikeouts. He threw 37 pitches in a laborious 2-run Phillies first, but then tossed just 54 pitches over 5 scoreless innings. He gave up 4 hits, which were a double and 3 singles. He issued 2 walks, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. He threw 91 pitches, 57 strikes, 34 balls. So MacKenzie Gore now for this regular season, 25 starts, ERA of 4.04, whip of 1.32. The 2-0 win over the Phillies on Saturday. Cade Cavalli was great. This might have been the number one bright spot for the Nats over the weekend. Cavalli tossed 7 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 7 hits, which were 2 doubles and 5 singles. He issued a wild pitch. He threw a lot of strikes, 90 pitches, 63 strikes, just 27 balls. Now, the Phillies had a runner in scoring position in each of the first 4 innings, and Cavalli did not have a single clean inning until tossing perfect 6th and 7th innings. But he did a nice job of working his way out of trouble, and ultimately 7 scoreless innings, 5 strikeouts, no walks. Cade Cavalli, since the Nats on August 6th announced having recalled him from AAA Rochester. 3 starts, ERA of 2.20, whip of 1.29, 14 strikeouts versus 4 walks. But the 11-9 loss to the Phillies on Sunday, Mitchell Parker, another terrible outing. He allowed 6 runs, 5 earned, in 1 2/3 innings. He gave up 4 hits, which were a home run and 3 singles. He issued 3 walks. He recorded no strikeouts. He threw a lot of balls, 52 pitches, just 28 strikes versus 24 balls. Now, Parker was plagued by some bad defense, including third baseman Brady House committing a fielding error in a Phillies 1-run first, and second baseman Jose Tena committing a throwing error in a Phillies 5-run second. But Parker in that Phillies 5-run second gave up 4 consecutive 2-out hits after the Tena era, including a 2-out, 3-run homer by Alec Bohm to left field for a 6-0 Phillies lead. This game marked Bohm's return from the 10-day injured list. And so Mitchell Parker now for this regular season, 25 starts, ERA of 5.83. That is the second worst ERA among all qualified pitchers in the majors. Whip of 1.50. That is the worst whip among all qualified pitchers in the majors. And his strikeouts per 9 innings is a tiny 5.83. His strikeouts per 9 innings is the same as his ERA, 5.83. That, my friends, is rough. The Nats bullpen in this 4-game split with the Phillies was good in 2 games and bad in 2 games. The 3-2 win over the Phillies on Thursday evening, 4 Nats relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. The most interesting thing from that game, from a Nats bullpen standpoint, Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo bringing in the Nats closer / ace reliever Jose A. Ferrer to begin the top of the 8th with the Phillies numbers 3 through 5 batters coming up, and the Nats having just taken a 3-2 lead, and Ferrer tossed a scoreless top of the 8th on just 12 pitches. The 6-2 loss to the Phillies on Friday evening, 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 3 innings. Clayton Beeter officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning. He would have ended up being a 4-run 7th for the Phillies, faced 3 batters, but recorded just 1 out as he issued back-to-back 1-out walks. And Connor Pilkington officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning. He and that Phillies 4-run 7th gave up back-to-back 2-out homers by ex-Nats. Gave up a 2-out 3-run homer by Kyle Schwarber to the second deck in right field. The homer went a projected 456 feet per Statcast, and Pilkington gave up a 2-out solo homer by Bryce Harper to center field on a 1-2 pitch for a 6-2 Phillies lead. That homer went a projected 414 feet per Statcast. The 2-0 win over the Phillies on Saturday, the Nats used just 1 reliever, the ace reliever, Jose A. Ferrer, who was effective again, 2 scoreless innings for the save. I really like what Miguel Cairo is doing with Ferrer, deploying him in non-9th inning spots, believing in Ferrer as the ace reliever, bringing him into high-leverage situations and allowing him to excel, and he is excelling. Cairo in this game brought in Ferrer to begin the top of the 8th, with the Phillies numbers 9 through 2 batters coming up, and the Nats having a 2-0 lead, and Ferrer tossed a perfect top of the 8th, and Ferrer then tossed a scoreless top of the 9th. And then the 11-9 loss to the Phillies on Sunday. 6 Nats relievers combined to allow 5 runs in 7 1/3 innings. Jackson Rutledge tossed 1 1/3 scoreless innings despite giving up 3 singles. He did record 2 swinging strikeouts. P.J. Poulin officially allowed 1 run in 2/3 of an inning. He had a Phillies 2-run fourth, faced 3 batters and got 2 outs. Orlando Revolta officially allowed 1 run in 2/3 of an inning. He and the Phillies 2-run fourth gave up a 2-out, bases-loaded 2-run single by Weston Wilson to left center field for an 8-6 Phillies lead. Shidosuke Ogasawara allowed 1 run in 2 2/3 innings. He in the top of the 6th gave up a 2-out solo homer by Nick Castellanos to left field on an 0-2 pitch for a 9-6 Phillies lead. The homer went a projected 428 feet per StatCast. Connor Pilkington's struggles continued. He allowed 2 runs in 1 inning. He in the top of the 8th allowed 2 runs on 2 hit-by pitches, a walk, a single, and a sac fly. He threw 21 pitches, just 9 strikes versus 12 balls, and Clayton Beeter did toss a perfect top of the 9th. This was a competitive series. The Phillies are really good. The Nats are not so good. But the Nats, I thought, in a lot of ways held their own in this series in forging this 4-game split. By the way, the Nats on Sunday afternoon did announce having optioned infielder Jose Tena to AAA Rochester. No game for the Nats on Monday. Next up for them is a 3-game series against the New York Mets at Nationals Park. Game 1 Tuesday evening at 6:45. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Wednesday evening at 6:45. Brad Lord will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3 Thursday afternoon at 4:05. MacKenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. An exciting weekend for the Orioles. They called up 2 of their top prospects and won 2 games at one of the best teams in the majors. The O's over the weekend won 2 out of 3 games at the American League West leading Houston Astros, with the 2 wins being blowout wins. Friday night, a 7-0 win at the Astros. Saturday night, a 5-4 12-inning loss at the Astros, despite the O's overcoming a 4-2 8th-inning deficit. Sunday afternoon, a 12-0 win at the Astros in a game in which the O's scored 4 runs in the top of the 5th and 5 runs in the top of the 8th, as the O's, Joe Angel, again, were in the win column.
And the Orioles again in the win column.
Yes, Joe, the win column. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 57-67. Worst record in the American League East, 3rd worst record in the American League. The O's over the weekend called up 2 of their top prospects. So the O's on Sunday morning announced having selected the contract of catcher/first baseman Samuel Basallo from AAA Norfolk. This is a big deal. Basallo, per MLB Pipeline, is the Orioles' number 1 overall prospect and is the number 8 overall prospect in baseball. He in the 12-0 win at the Astros on Sunday afternoon in his MLB regular season debut served as the Orioles starting DH and number 6 batter. He went 1 for 4 with a 2-run single. Adley Rutschman, for now, remains the Orioles' number 1 catcher, but you wonder where we are headed long-term at that catcher spot, with Rutschman having had a so-so last few seasons and Basallo being such a highly regarded prospect. Also, the O's on Saturday morning announced having selected the contract of outfielder Dylan Beavers from AAA Norfolk. He is the Orioles' number 3 overall prospect per MLB Pipeline. The O's took Beavers out of the University of California, Berkeley with the number 33 overall pick in the 2022 MLB Draft. Beavers in the 5-4 12-inning loss at the Astros on Saturday night in his MLB regular season debut served as the Orioles starting right fielder and number 6 batter. He went 1 for 5 with a double. Beavers in the 12-0 win at the Astros on Sunday afternoon as the Orioles starting left fielder and number 8 batter went 1 for 4 with a single and a walk. There, of course, has not been much to be excited about with the O's this season. Samuel Basallo and Dylan Beavers are 2 reasons to be excited now if you're an O's fan. These are 2 guys who killed it for AAA Norfolk this season. Basallo OPS of 966, Beavers OPS of 935. As for the Orioles offense overall over the weekend, the 7-0 win at the Astros on Friday night, the Orioles offense was good. The O's O's scored 7 runs, totaled 13 hits, worked 1 walk, and went 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. The 13 hits were 2 home runs, a double, and 10 singles. So the O's did a good job against the Astros ace, Framber Valdez. He allowed 4 runs, 3 earned, in 6 2/3 innings. He gave up 9 hits, so though he did have 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk, but Kobe Mayo homered. It was good to see that. He is the Orioles starting first baseman and number 6 batter, went 1 for 4 with a solo homer. The 5-4 12-inning loss at the Astros on Saturday night. The Orioles offense was not good. The O's over 12 innings scored just 4 runs, total just 7 hits, worked just 2 walks, went a brutal 0 for 14 with runners in scoring position, and struck out 14 times. So the O's did have 4 extra base hits, as the 7 hits were 2 home runs, a triple, a double, and 3 singles. And Jackson Holliday did have a big homer. He is the Orioles starting second baseman and number 1 batter, went 1 for 5 with a 2-run homer. He did Orioles a 2-run 8th, had a full count 2-run homer to right field to tie the game at 4. And the 12-0 win at the Astros on Sunday afternoon. The Orioles offense was great. The O's scored 12 runs, totaled 14 hits, worked 5 walks, and went 7 for 14 with runners in scoring position. The 14 hits were a home run, a double, and 12 singles. A tremendous production from the Orioles' numbers 1 and 2 batters. Jackson Holliday, he is the Orioles starting second baseman and number 1 batter, went 2 for 4 with an RBI single, another single, and 2 walks. Jordan Westburg, he is the Orioles starting third baseman and number 2 batter, went 4 for 5 with a 3-run homer, 2 RBI singles, and another single. Also, outfielder Colton Cowser is back. The O's on Sunday morning announced having reinstated Cowser from the 7-day concussion injured list. He had been on that since August 8th, retroactive to August 7th. Cowser on Sunday afternoon as the Orioles starting center fielder and number 5 batter, went 1 for 5 with a single. The O's in winning 2 out of 3 games at the Astros over the weekend got outstanding outings from 2 starting pitchers. The 7-0 win at the Astros on Friday night, Brandon Young was sensational. He tossed 8 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts versus no walks. He allowed just 1 hit, which was an infield single. He threw a lot of strikes, 93 pitches, 61 strikes, just 32 balls. Young tossed 7 2/3 perfect innings before allowing the hit, which was a weak 2-out infield single by Ramon Arias, who the O's on July 31st, what was 2025 MLB trade deadline day, announced as having traded, along with cash considerations, to the Astros for starting pitching prospect Twine Palmer. Brandon Young did commit a throwing error on that infield single by Ramon Arias. But Young in this game was so good, and you wonder if this was a breakout start for Brandon Young. He had not been doing well. You hope like heck that this outing does signal the start of Young becoming a quality starting pitcher in much the same way, by the way, that a great outing by Kyle Bradish in an Orioles shutout win at the Astros on an August Friday night 3 years ago marked the start of him becoming a quality starting pitcher. August 26, 2022, Bradish in a 2-0 Orioles win at the Astros tossed 8 scoreless innings. This outing by Brandon Young this past Friday night reminded me so much of that outing by Kyle Bradish. And the 12-0 win at the Astros on Sunday afternoon, Dean Kremer tossed 7 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He gave up just 3 hits, all of which were singles. He issued a wild pitch. He threw 114 pitches, 72 strikes versus 42 balls. So Kremer now for this regular season, 25 games, including 24 starts, ERA of 3.97, as at last that Dean Kremer ERA is under 4, whip of 1.21. The 5-4 12-inning loss at the Astros on Saturday night. Starting pitcher Cade Povich, in his 3rd outing since coming off the 15-day injured list, came into the game to begin the bottom of the 2nd. This off reliever Rico Garcia serving as the Orioles opener and tossing a scoreless bottom of the 1st. Povich allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 5 hits, all of which were singles. He issued 3 walks and a wild pitch, but he recorded 10 strikeouts, and he threw a lot of strikes. 91 pitches, 60 strikes, just 31 balls. And then the Orioles relief pitching in the team winning 2 out of 3 games at the Astros over the weekend. The O's in their 7-0 win at the Astros on Friday night used just 1 reliever, who was Yaramil Geraldo. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th. The 5-4 12-inning loss at the Astros on Saturday night. 5 non-opener Orioles relievers combined to allow 2 runs, 1 earned in 5 2/3 innings. And the a 12-0 win at the Astros on Sunday afternoon. 2 Orioles relievers combined for 2 scoreless innings. Grant Wolfram tossed a scoreless bottom of the 8th with 3 strikeouts. Corbin Martin tossed a scoreless bottom of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts. A good series for the O's. Also with the O's, they on Sunday afternoon announced having return catcher Maverick Handley from his minor league rehab assignment, having reinstated him from the 10-day injured list and having optioned him to AAA Norfolk. The O's on June 23rd announced having put Handley on the 7-day concussion injured list, and on July 23rd announced having transferred Handley to the 10-day injured list due to a right wrist sprain. Next up for the O's is a 2-game series at the Boston Red Sox. Game 1 Monday night at 7:10, Trevor Rogers will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 Tuesday night at 7:10, Tomoyuki Sagano will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday show, episode 1136. We'll have plenty for you on the Commanders, reaction to and analysis of whatever happens in their preseason game against the Cincinnati Bengals at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football at 8. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Orioles. The O's are at the Boston Red Sox Monday night at 7:10 in Game 1 of a 2-game series. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Have you been able to see from the wide receiver room what you need to see from that group, and how are they shaping up together?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress. Some guys are taking advantage of the opportunities and some have not.